Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Saturn Return Diaries podcast. My name is Courtney. Hello. If you're on YouTube, you can see I am solo today. So it's a solo episode. I actually did my hair for this. So it's, really needs a cut, but I'm looking at myself and I'm like, wow, it is kind of voluminous today versus just being up at a bun. So there we go. That's great. I'm winning today. Anyway, that is not what we talk about here on this podcast. If you guys are new here, welcome. I'm noticing that there's more and more people coming over and saying hello, whether it be on Instagram or just, listening to the podcast. And I just want you to know how grateful I am for that. I've talked about this before, but I really resisted starting this because of all the work it was going to take me to do. I just did quotations. And the time and effort it was going to take, but the nudge kept coming through from spirit for months. So just know how grateful I am that you're here and that you listen and that there are takeaways from this. I just planned up until the end of season 1. So we're going to do November. There's going to be a podcast episode as normal. And then I'm going to take a break for December because I have some other little juicy things I'm working on. So follow me on my personal account at I am Court Burns for that. But yeah, other than that, super excited to obviously be here solo. I love talking to people. It's my favorite thing. I'm getting so much just medicine from them. And I always hope that you guys are getting that too. So anyway, if you've clicked on this episode, we're talking about Saturn through the signs today. So full transparency, I had to do some research on this, and that's how it goes. Anytime you're learning astrology, it takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of leaning into learning different things, and it's a constant study. So some of these I feel really rooted and grounded in a sense of I understand them, and some of them I'm also still learning myself. So I just want to preface that. Obviously, my Saturn is in Aquarius, and that's what's going on in the world right now. So that's the one I feel most comfortable with, teaching or talking about. But through hearing other people's experiences so far and their Saturn signs, I'm starting to really be that makes sense on how that came up. So we're going to go through each of the signs and where Saturn is. And also keep in mind that it obviously depends what house Saturn is in. And that will give you more of the picture, you need to have your birth time to kind of figure out what that exact placement is in that house. But this is just a general overview for the collective. So for example, when we had Saturn in Capricorn, everybody got that experience. Now we're having Saturn in Aquarius. Everybody gets that experience. But if you are someone who's born with Saturn in Aquarius, then that's your Saturn return. So same goes when we move into Pisces. It'll be everybody's going to be met with that energy. And people who are born with Saturn in Pisces, then they will be having their Saturn return. So I hope that makes sense. And just keep in mind, there's a ton of other things that come into play when we are talking about this energy. I just feel I need to caveat that because I know that it can be easy to be oh, that's me. I'm Saturn in Aquarius or I'm Saturn in Pisces. And that's true. There's going to be elements of this, but there's also going to be points that are well, we would need to look at your actual chart to understand exactly what's happening to your Saturn. Is your Saturn squaring your sun? Is your Saturn opposing your Chiron? What's happening to it? So just please keep that in mind. Saturn's Courtney, make sure you tell them this. Do we think Saturn has a voice like that? What do we think Saturn sounds like? Interesting. You know what? This is my Gemini. So I kind of have a little bit of ADHD. I don't know. I think I kind of do. I think we all sort of do, especially as creatives. I see how I just rambled in 1,000 different ways. We're going on a tangent for a second. So strap in. Hopefully you're already strapped in if you're driving. But anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to say here is that I have this ability to kind of go off on different tracks. And I think that's what I was just doing with that little tangent. And I was about to say my Gemini house is the third house of communication. So sometimes I veer all over the place with what I'm talking about. So just hang on and hang tight with me. And I don't remember where I was going with that. So we're going to end that there and continue on. Oh, Saturn's voice. Oh my God. I hope you guys are like not super annoyed of this rant. Basically, I was thinking that maybe next season, there's no way that I can get people to record things. Like, let's say you have a question, then you can record them and I can put them in the podcast. So I'm thinking about bringing things like that on and adding some more like advice column sections, maybe doing some round tables with people. But it would be really cool to hear what people's voices are for Saturn. Like, what do you think Saturn's voice sounds like? You know what I mean? So, yeah. Anyway, okay, that's enough of me rambling. Let's get into this episode. So, obviously, we're going to talk about Saturn. We're going to go through all the signs. So, stick with me. We are going to go through Aries all the way to Pisces because that's the order they go in. I'm sorry, Pisces. I know it sucks waiting till the end, but it's important to kind of note this as well. Like I said, for our collective and other people in your life. And when we're listening to people's stories who have these Saturns, we can be like, oh, yeah, right, that was that. So let's start. All right. Grab yourself a pen and paper, grab yourself some sort of beverage, or if you're driving, you're not going to do any of that. You're just going to keep listening. If you're walking, same thing. You're going to take mental note. All right. And whatever feels like you're like, aha, like that's what you're supposed to hear. All right. So there we go. So let's start with Aries. So Saturn in Aries, I like to call this one the ultimate pioneer. And I'll give an example after, but we obviously know that Aries is this energy. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. If you don't know about each one of the signs, you should maybe look into that because this will make more sense. But Saturn in Aries is this energy of like being the ultimate pioneer, some form of a leader in a sense. So we know that Saturn causes these like restrictions and limitations, and it's our biggest teacher. So whenever this is showing up in a certain sign, you need to learn about those things that sign kind of brings to the table. So this could be like this person needs to learn how to be their own boss. This person needs to learn to trust themselves and their ideas and leading the way and kind of getting out of their own way. And at the same time, because Aries is this like fire energy that's just like all about the self, it's also about learning how to let other people help us. So if you've got Saturn in Aries, then this is something that can come up for you. We're actually going to have Saturn in Aries, that transit's going to come up, and it's going to be there's a lot of Gen Zs with this placement. And what I kind of want to say about that is I just feel like there's this resourcefulness. They're a leader, very entrepreneurial. So like these Saturn and Aries kids who are Gen Z, who are coming up, I've been saying this for a while, but I just get this sense that they're going to be creating brand new jobs out of or like taking the lead in those jobs from everything that's going on now as the time I'm recording this and coming off 2020. So I know someone in my life personally who has this, and he is the ultimate entrepreneur. It's actually my stepdad. I don't think he listens to this, but I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense that he has Saturn in Aries. And funnily enough, my sister, which is like his daughter, also has Saturn in Aries. So there's this kind of like dynamic there of like they're going to be the ones that are creating something new or leading a new path. The thing to remember with this though is because Aries is often hot-headed, it's learning how to work with those emotions and the things that kind of come along with being your own boss and being a leader, and maybe not feeling like you have to do things all on your own. It's about delegating and learning how to be, I guess, part of a team. So some of the years, just so that you guys know, Saturn and Aries dates, it goes way back, but I'll just say this. So from March 3rd, 1967 till April 29th, 1969, Saturn was in Aries. Again in April of 1996 to June 1998. And then again in October of 1998 to February 1999. And then May 2025 until September 2025. And then again, it'll be February 2026 to April 2028. I will link this article below so you can actually see this below. This is a great website for the dates, and also it just gives you a little bit of information on each of the signs. So I will resource it below. But yeah, so just keep that in mind as we're going through. So then the next one that we're going to talk about today is we are going to talk about Taurus. So if you're somebody who has Taurus and Saturn, this would maybe be for you. And knowing that we're going to have this come again in the future, right? So just keeping in mind for these energies. So Taurus is all about like that comfort and that it's a fixed earth sign. So it does have a lot to do with our material possessions, the things that we like on a material plane, like money, our value, our worth, beauty, like food, that sort of thing. And so when we have Saturn in Taurus, there's this element here of like this person or this energy that we need to really work on is about the kind of things around like scarcity beliefs. Taurus energy in Saturn can feel there's like a something being taken away, or there's like an element of like like I have to hold on to this because I'm scared I won't have enough. Like that's very Taurus. They don't change super easily because they have that fixed energy. And when Saturn comes in and tries to teach them through that energy of like lack or resources that they might have, it's really teaching them to be resilient, be resourceful, and allow themselves to have things, which means there's a mindset shift that has to happen. So Saturn comes in and is like, hey, you really need to like learn how to use your resources in a different way, be resourceful, but also allow yourself to, have more, like allow in that pleasure in life. And so what I wrote down for this was like this grow versus hold on, and kind of what I think might happen in the future is this generation. And when we're all met with that Saturn and Taurus, it's going to be coming off a big time of our lives of what just happened now. And I have a feeling that might show up as some sort of financial situation that is really changing, right? Saturn is our structure. So there'll be a different change in our environment and in our financial structures, and the people with that energy in their chart. This will be big lessons for them when they're going through their return. I also saw it as like Mama Earth. So it kind of is about like healing the earth. So these people might be more geared towards, helping the environment, so to speak, which makes a lot of sense. So the dates that's going to happen, just so that we kind of have that to look on. So yeah, I'll go back to we'll start in 1969. It goes back before, but end of April 1969 to June 1971. This was Saturn and Taurus. Again in January of 1972 to February 1972. And then June 1998, October to October 1998. And then end of February 1999 to August 2000. And so then again, it was October 2000 to April 2001. And then we're going to have this again during April 2028 to May 2030. So those kids that many of you have out there who were born in the millennial, they are going to be the Saturn and Taurus kids. Kind of makes sense when we think about it as in terms of like being helpful with the environment. So we'll see how that plays out. And then the next one obviously is Gemini. So let's talk about Gemini. I wrote this down as like a student teacher, some sort of like person who, has Saturn and Gemini. What might come up for them during their Saturn return is like, maybe it's going back to school or like learning something more or needing to like use their voice. So they're learning how to use their voice, or like almost like reconditioning what they're sharing. This could be someone who writes a book like during their return, or it could be somebody who works on expressing their voices in different ways. And then also there's like a logical element to their thinking. So it could mean that maybe they're innovative and they think of some new ideas and something that comes up for them in order to help the collective or in their own life. But it does have to do with some form of a communication. And because we know that Saturn restricts, this energy can be, in a sense, a form of like restricting the voice, of like learning how to use it in new ways, learning how to speak up, be present, and kind of expanding that curiosity. I do see this as like large student energy. So like I'm very curious. I haven't had anyone on the podcast yet who has Saturn and Gemini, but I'm wondering like if that's you out there and something happened in your life that potentially was like, oh, I needed to learn more about something or go back to school. That would be really cool to learn more about. So the dates for that are so in June 1971 to January 1972, February 1972 to August 1973, January of 1974 to 1970 or April 1974, August 2000 to October 2000. So again, those millennial kids. Oh my gosh, I'm having a profound thought right now. I'll share after this. April 2001 to June 2003, May 2030 to July 2032. We will see this again. So Gemini, okay, here's what I just want to add this before we move on. Gemini also has a lot to do with like mental thought, right? And so now I'm having this kind of idea come through of like knowing what's happening now, knowing that Gemini is voices, and knowing that a lot of these kids are currently in school with certain things over their faces, covering their mouths, right? And also being told what to do versus necessarily question. I'm not saying that's happening everywhere, but it is quite a big narrative. And Gemini, because it's an air sign, also has to do with mental health. So if you are a parent and your child has Saturn and Gemini, something that's coming through for me right now is I'm like, this is going to be where we see a big repercussion of mental health. They could even be the ones that kind of help it, come through, but just keep that in mind. And especially knowing that it's the voices, right? Like their voices need to be honored and heard in order to really help them in when they get to that point in their Saturn return. That was super intuitive. We shall see. Let me know if that resonates with anyone out there. Okay, so let's go to Cancer, which is the next sign. And this one I knew right away. I was like, oh, this is the mama, the mystic mama of the signs. Like if you have Saturn in Cancer, again, I haven't interviewed anyone with Saturn in Cancer, but this energy is so nurturing. And so knowing that there's a element of Saturn coming in and changing up your structure, this could really be about someone starting a new like life for themselves, whether it be a family, whether it be the energy of like starting, I don't know, like creating something new, being a nurturer, something in your family, becoming a mom, like those types of things. And also really setting the tone for like a new stage of intuition, because we know that Cancer is very intuitive, right? So it might even be like this new, like Saturn in Cancer is like, okay, how do I sit with these emotions and feelings and learn to work with them? Maybe it's like spiritual gifts or whatever that case might be. I also wrote down here, there's like, would be a lot of reparenting happening during that Saturn and Saturn return of Cancer. So again, if anybody out there has this, I'm very curious to learn about your Saturn. But these are just some points that I wrote down. And then the safety and comfort aspect with with Cancer. So they really need to learn how to let other people in and, you know, not just like crab shell it out. And I feel like that's something that could come up with Saturn, especially. Or on the flip side, it could be that they're relying so much on other people for safety and in their own comfort that they kind of abandon themselves. That's also a very Cancerian trait. So that might show up during someone's Saturn return in Cancer of like they got to work through that um, in order to really like, I guess, you know, be their most evolved self. And so Saturn can help them work through that on an emotional level. So the dates for that are we have June. Okay. So from August 1973 to January 1974, April 1974 to September 1975, January of 1976 to June of 1976, again in June 2003 to July of 2005. Okay, so again, it'll happen in July 2032 and August of 2034, February 2035 to May of 2035. So I know a lot of you have younger kids who are listening to this, and it's so interesting that I'm doing this because I kind of feel like maybe this is why part of me is like, oh, like I feel like I need to like save the children. I always say that. And I just think about the next generation so much. And it's very interesting that we're talking about this now because a lot of the younger kids will have these placements kind of coming up. So yeah, that's Cancer. Next one we will go into is, oh, I forgot about Leo. How did I forget about Leo? Oh my gosh, Leo is my favorite sign and I forgot to write you guys down. I'm so sorry about that. Let's go into this. So, if you're someone who has Saturn in Leo, this could show up as like really somebody who's like needing to step into their own leadership and learn how to be brave and bold and courageous like on your own. Like it's really stepping into that. Because Leo is such an expressive sign, there can also be these elements of like not feeling like you can express yourself or that's the lesson and to like learn to embrace your own confidence. And it is such a leadership sign. So it can be literally like where in your life, like if you have Saturn and Leo, you're kind of experiencing these lessons around how can you stand up for what you know, feel is right for you. And embody more of that like expression, that that unique expression of who you are. This can also be about learning to potentially not be like befriending your ego. Like some ego stuff can come up around there. And I guess maybe an element as well of like the showing offy part of Leo, like if that's coming through more, it's like, well, how do you balance that with like this humbleness? Because we know Saturn will humble you out 100%. And so yeah, that's some things that might come through with that Leo, Saturn and Leo, and as a collective level, we might even feel that as, you know, new leaders being born or fun, like joy. Like these people, like having Saturn and Leo, it's probably like joy is an important part for you. And playfulness as well. So yeah, insecurities can come up around that time. Of course, like learning how to be, you know, not just like the one who's on the side and kind of like asserting yourself. Those things can come up. And yeah, this can be someone who's very talented. Maybe they have like a lot of skills and they're just learning how to use them. Or Saturn's like, you know, you got to put in the work to create some sort of a structure so that you can actually share these with the world. That could also be something else. Again, I haven't interviewed anyone with Saturn and Leo, so it would be very curious to hear that. But the dates are so from September of 1975 to January 1976, June of 1976 to November 1977, January 1978 to July of 1978, and then our millennial kids, July of 2005 to September 2007. It's going to happen again in August of 2035 to February 2035. And May 2035 to October 2036, and then again in February of 2037, and to July of 2037. So interesting. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of us who probably have kids coming up that are born in this time. So that'll be very interesting. Like if I have a child in 2000 oh no. Yeah. I'm just having a little moment here. I'm like, if I have a child before 2034, which I kind of hope I do, because I think that would be a very long time away. So, but anyway, this will be the next coming generations to come. So that is that. So yeah, that's Leo. I can't believe I forgot those to write those down at first. I love you, Leos. How did I forget? And then so Virgo, let's talk about Virgo. So someone who has Saturn in Virgo, or when we're talking about like Saturn Virgo in the sky, in our collective, this energy, instantly I was like, whoa, there's like a very big healing aspect to this. Someone who's like a very hard worker, or like work might be their prime focus, especially in their Saturn, especially depending on like what house this is in. Obviously, it would say more, but there could be something to do with like their literal health that comes up with someone with Saturn and Virgo. And learning like this perfectionism, like during that time might come up, or having to learn more in regards to health and routines that keep them feeling vibrant. Like I do see Saturn in Virgo like being some sort of a health, something with health come up. Or there could be like a big health thing that happens in the collective. I don't even want to say that right now, but that could be the case. And yeah, so knowing those two, it's so interesting because obviously the lessons within that are like this person really needs to learn how to like balance their work and their health, and have like a work-life balance so that they're not like depleting themselves and their health. Because these people do naturally have like very, very hard, like incredible work ethic. So yeah, just something to keep in mind with that. So let's go over the dates. I think I have done a reading for someone who actually had this in their chart, or their partner did, and it was like very on point. Yeah. So actually this is like a big one in the 1950s. So I'll go back a little further. So in May of 1949 to November of 1950, this was there. This is so key. March 7th, 1951 to August 1951. Again, November of 1977 to January 1978. End of July 1978 to September 1980. So before I go into the next group of people, it's like these generations, you can literally look back and see like they had to work. Like they were like, we have to work to survive. Like think of what they're coming off of. So interesting. And the next group is September 2007 to October 2009. So helping those little babies understand that they don't need to be perfect all the time. April 2010 to July 2010 was another group of those Saturn and Virgos. And then we're going to have this energy again in October of 2036 to February 2037. And then again in July of 2037 to September 2039. It's wild that I'm even like going that far ahead. I know. You're probably like, whoa, Court, slow the frick down. So yeah, that's Virgo. Let's go into Libra. So Libra is about sides and relationships. So people who have Saturn and Libra, instantly I'm like, something's going on in your life with your partnerships, one-on-one business, like marriage even. Like these people could literally get married during this time, divorce maybe. Something in partnerships, super big here to keep note of. Legal stuff. So again, it could be like divorce or marriage, quite literally. And bringing in this like justice and equality of like balance and like a mediator. So in my gut, when I feel into that, I'm like, this is like huge for relationships and marriage. So when we look back at the dates, let's see if there's a correlation, or if you know anybody in your life who's Saturn and Libra, see where this kind of plays out. But yeah, I instantly am like, okay, that's like potentially maybe where the divorce rates maybe went up. So let's have a look. So yeah, I'll go back to this. So 1951, August of 1951 to October of 1953, Saturn was in Libra. It was also in Libra from September 1980 to November of 1982. And then again in May of 1983 to August of 1983. And before I keep going, just keep in mind that that was the collective energy that everybody was feeling when Saturn was in Libra. So that could have brought up a lot of stuff around the partnerships and marriage front, which is probably why it kind of catalyzed this idea of like, you know, being allowed to get divorced even from those times. And then so these other kids in the millennials, October 2009 to April 7th, 2010. The July 2010 babies to October of 2012. They also have this energy in their chart. And then we're going to meet this again in 2039 to 2041, and then again in 2042 to the middle of 2042. So very interesting little insight that just came through there. Then Scorpio. So Saturn and Scorpio people, I'm like, instantly I wrote down like rebels, big rebels. How are they rebelling and creating, like almost like giving rebirth to the structure with these like different ideas and topics that are maybe a little bit more taboo, or, you know, psychology or therapy, mental health, like these things that are really like hidden, or like hidden things might come out for that person experiencing their Saturn return. But as a collective, it's like these darker quote unquote topics could really come out during that time. So, also like sexual stuff, I feel like is big here with that Saturn and Scorpio. So let's keep that in mind as well. So they go through lots of change. So again, that like death and rebirth of cycles. I have actually had people on who have Saturn and Scorpio. So you can hear that there was a lot of change and a lot of like death and rebirth in their life. They have to learn to let go and embrace depth. So embracing those vulnerabilities, like understanding their emotions on a deeper level versus like escaping them. That would have been like a huge theme within the collective at that time. So those dates we'll do November, the end of November 1982 to May of 1983. Again, in August of 1983 to November of 1985. And then 2012 babies, October of 2012 to December of 2014. Again, in June of 2015 to September 2015. Again, and we're going to have this happen in 2041 of November to June of 2042. So this is super interesting because that November 11th, 2041, it'll be Scorpio season when Saturn moves into Scorpio again. Interesting. All right. Future. See you there. We'll see what happens. And then Sag. So these, okay, I need to have some, if you have, I think I have had a few now, but if you have your Capricorn and Sag, I'm super curious to talk to these people as well, because I've done a few readings for people who have this in their chart, and it seems to be there's some form of a creative expression that comes through, or something you're learning, something you're questioning, something. There's like a spiritual aspect of like understanding things, of like your spiritual awakening. So like come say hey on Instagram if this is you. The storyteller and the teacher. So there's lessons here about telling your story and teaching something. or learning more in this case. So I've had a few clients who have this, and they actually went back to school to become teachers, which was very interesting. They have this idea of like needing to know why or needing to know something more. Um, School belief systems and change in the belief system seems to be very big with this energy. And I'm even thinking of it when like the next generation comes through and they have there are a couple how do I want to put this? The generation that has Saturn and Sagittarius that are kind of like coming up next. I feel like they are hugely going to, especially the Pluto and Sagittarius. I'm kind of rambling now, but there's this energy of like really creating like new beliefs to live from. And that seems very prominent going forward. So that's kind of cool. So the dates for that, let's go into that. So from November of 1985 to February 1988, June 1988 to November of 1988, then the end of December 2014 to June 2015, September 2015 to December of 2017. So those kids are going to be hugely impactful, and they already are doing this. I truly wonder, like Greta, you know, that girl that's like doing the environmental stuff. I'm very curious if she's in this cluster. She might be in the Scorpio one as well. But anyway. And then so continuing on, we will have it again in February of 2044 into March of 2044. And it goes into more, but I'm going to stop there. So interestingly, that will be another thing that will come up. What would be I guess I didn't really say like some of the things that they have to learn. If they don't understand why, like they can really attach to this. So that's important to note because it's like Sagittarius can be very black or white sometimes. And they have to understand that sometimes there is like a gray area, and they need to learn that there can be like this in between of like, just because there isn't like a fact or there isn't this, it's like there can be both, you know, like Sagittarius, because they're very good at research and understanding, and they are very open-minded, but they do have to learn, especially with that Saturn, that like sometimes our structures and systems, there can be this gray area. Very big on rules and can be critical. Okay, literally it says this in here. It's like you may have a hard or harsh sense of justice. Yeah. Overall, I love it. I love Sagittarius. They're very optimistic, but that Saturn element there is like, must be like this. All right, let's finish these guys off. We are going into Capricorn. So the last three that we will go through, we have met lots of people on this podcast who have Saturn and Capricorn. And I think many of you have begun to realize that they were creating their own businesses. They were learning to be their own boss, being self-sufficient, learning their power of leadership, and growth and building something, right? I've said this before, but my Saturn is in Aquarius at 0 degrees. And I've actually never, I need to check in on this with another astrologer, but my intuitive feeling is that I actually got some of that Capricorn because it is in my Capricorn house. And also, it's on the cusp actually. And also the Aquarius kind of like coming too. So I sort of feel like I got both energies there. And I think that anyway, just a little side note, again, rambling. But for the most part, these people have to really learn a sense of responsibility, growth, how to build something, and learn to take the pressure off of themselves. Ariana is one of my favorite examples of this because in the episode we did together, she actually said she's learned that like rest is a non-negotiable, like it's part of it. And I obviously know her as a friend. And at the beginning of her Saturn return, or even before that, she was like working on her business, like growing things. She is very Capricorn energy and she has Saturn in Capricorn. But then as it kind of came into the end, she had to learn to shift the ways that she was working. And I just think that that's that Saturn in Capricorn as well. So let's do the dates for those. Saturn in Capricorn goes all the way back to January 1959 to January of 1962. Obviously, it's like goes back into the 30s, but you know, February 1988 to June of 1988, November 1988 to February 6th, 1991. Oh my Atlanta. So mark that date. Legit, I'm born on February 7th, 1991. So it literally changed and I made it into Saturn and Aquarius. Freaking wild, man. Astrology just blows my mind. Anyway, so then we have December of 2017 to March of 2020. So any of the kids that were born in the pandemic before March 2020, y'all, these babies are Saturn and Cap. And then what happened? There was like a little bit of time where Saturn went into Aquarius. And then July of 2020 to December of 2020, all those babies born with Saturn and Capricorn. And then we're going to have this energy again during 2047 where those babies will have their Saturn return. So there you go. There's that one, which is going to be very interesting. We will see what happens in regards to knowing that things change and astrology happens in cycles. So next, let's do Aquarius. You guys know that I obviously love this one so much. And in simple terms, Saturn and astrology, screw the system. Like, how can we create a new system and structure for society that is progressive and that is, more encompassing of humanity, about the people, about being a humanitarian? The thing with this, though, is because Saturn restricts, here's the words I'm going to use: isolation, social distancing, alienation, feels weird for being themselves, or dominates or says like, I want to be this way, like I want to be different. You're not seeing and hearing me for being different, for wanting to live my life in this different way. Change to the rules and structures, progressive ways. Yes, I already said that. And doesn't feel how do I want to say this? Doesn't feel like they necessarily fit in with groups. So there can be this element of like wanting to create your own group, which to some people, and this is true, this can come up with this, there's like the sense of like culty kind ofness. Now we're seeing this play out in the world right now as I'm recording this. So you guys know this energy. We've been in it for a while. So this is big. So people are having their Saturn return in Aquarius. These people have to learn how to be part of community, part of collective, and it's about honoring and seeing people for exactly as they are and not forcing them to be something different or forcing things upon them just because they don't believe that to be true. It's kind of about, creating this balance within our society that allows people to just be themselves and us accepting them as themselves, as much as it is of let's take the legs out from underneath this structure and just go boom. Of course, but there's also elements with Aquarius. Technology is big. Progressive medicine is big. And these are some things that can come up during that energy. And I will leave that there because you guys can all read between the lines. And you know my stance on a lot of things right now because I am very vocal about it, but I'm also really trying my best to embrace those aspects of not distancing myself just because I think of something different or just because I'm doing something different. And instead, how can we just embrace one another more for our differences and celebrate them? That is also a very big piece of this. So the dates on that, okay, so people who were born from, Jim Carrey's part of this, January 1962 to March of 1964, September 1964 to December 1964, February 6th, 1991. So like they're basically saying if you're on that cusp, then you're in this group as well. May of 19, okay. So February 6th, 1991 to May of 1993. And then again in June of 1993 to January 1994. And then the babies that were born in that little time that Saturn was in Aquarius from March of 2020 to July of 2020, and then December 2020 to March 2023. So that's happening right now. All right, cool. It's weird because it stops there. Like it doesn't give you any more dates. So I don't know what that means, but spooky. So yeah, and then let's go into Pisces last. So we're on our last one. Thank you for sticking through and listening to this whole thing. If you've been here and you're taking in this knowledge, I know this is like quite a different episode. So I appreciate you. But I wanted to make sure I did this. So Pisces is what I said is like the spiritual teacher or spiritual leader with this Saturn and Pisces energy. And I've been like leaning into this a little bit here and like trying to learn more about it because I know a lot of you have Saturn and Pisces coming up. And these people are huge healers, empaths. They're on the spiritual path and they are meant to be because when Saturn moves into Pisces, there's going to be this element of really needing to heal the collective after all the change and the different dynamics of everything that has gone on when it did. These people tend to take on a lot of things like the weight of the world is on their shoulders, and their job is to actually learn their spiritual gifts and skills versus like push them away because that can cause things like depression, anxiety, lots of that mental health or internal turmoil. And watch for like these people need to watch for like escapism. So Saturn might make them actually like face these things and be like, you need to have a relationship with your intuitive self, with your emotions. These are your superpower. Like you need to learn them and have a relationship to spirituality. A theory that I have and something I've been noticing is that people with this Pisces, Saturn and Pisces energy, I've been noticing that like New Age to Jesus movement. So there's like a shift from the New Age spirituality into like back to the Jesus movement. And I think it's so beautiful. I've kind of actually been playing into like how does this feel for me, and I'm not opposed to it at all. I think it's beautiful to believe in God and Jesus or any type of religion that feels good to you. But I do notice a lot of Saturn and Pisces people have this like relationship to God, or there's been more of these like people who are whatever the religion is, they're kind of talking about it more. And like Justin Bieber is an example of this. He has Saturn and Pisces, and I was like, that's really interesting. So that's just a bit of a theory I have, but ultimately when you guys get to this point and when we all have Saturn in Pisces, there's going to be a lot of healing. We're going to see more around, healing through plant medicine, healing through being in ritual and retreats. More of that like factor of having a spiritual sense is going to be very big here. It's also about a lot of endings, right? There's Pisces, the final one of the zodiac. So it's about really clearing out, and the planet is going to have a lot of the only term I have right now for it is healing, and learning about going with that flow and that more creativity even within this, So anyway, that's what I have written for that. I'm sure there will be more when the time comes that I kind of feel into, and I will do more of the individual podcasts around this energy when their time is here. So the dates for that are from March of 1964 to, I'll go back a little further. So October 1937 to January of 1938, March of 1964 to September 1964, December 1964 to March 1967, May of 1993 to June of 1993. I see you guys. And then January 1994 to April 7th, 1996. I know so many of you and you're in here, and yeah, I feel you deeply. March of 2023 to 2025. So that's when you're going to be having your return. And then again in 2025 to 2026, February 2026. So those are some of the, some of the things that are coming up. So if you notice that, you're in one of these categories, and, think back to what was going on during your Saturn return, or think about what might be to come and the work that you're doing right now to prep for that. But I wanted to just do this video. I know this video is and this recording is getting quite long now, so I'll wrap it up. And I know it's a lot of information to take in. I know that. I full 100% know that. And I just want you to have this so you can come back to it and listen to it whenever you would like, or dig into it a little bit more for yourself. I will link everything in the show notes so that you can have a look through and maybe look for some resources on your own. If you want to come over to Saturn Return Diaries and say hello, I would freaking love that. So definitely please come and say hey. And I also just want to go to show that, if you're somebody out there that has one of these placements and you want to chat, I would love to have you on the podcast. This month for November is already filled up, but I will be starting things for 2022 so we can get things going then. So just reach out. And I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this. Hope you got some takeaways. I need a drink of water because that was a lot. But just remember, Saturn loves us. Saturn is not trying to make our life harder, even though it feels like it sometimes. Saturn is helping us grow and evolve. And to that, I say, I love you all. Go live your dreams. And remember, Saturn is always listening. Bye.